All right, gang, welcome to another edition of Captain Dave's Wheelhouse, or your saltwater guide. Today we're going to talk about knots. This is something that you guys have been asking about for a while, so we're just going to go over some of the knots that I tie. Now, I don't know how to tie a phenomenal amount of knots, but I know how to tie enough knots that I seem to do pretty well out here. First of all, what we're going to do is show you how I connect my braided line to my fluorocarbon or monofilament, depending on what kind you want to use. Now, when I use braided line, I'm using color that does not matter. Everybody thinks color matters. The only reason color matters is because you want it to look cool on your reel. Other than that, the fish aren't reacting to the color of the line, contrary to popular belief, because 9 out of 10 times you're going to put a small leader in front of the braided line. So I'm not really sure why people get so wound up about the color. But I'll tell you what, if you think the color matters, then you better get the color you think matters, because if not, you're going to not be fishing confident all day, like we've talked about in a lot of the videos that we've done. So we're going to show you real quick how I tie the two together. It's probably not the greatest knot in the world, but it works every time for me, and it works great. I lay the monofilament along the side of the braid, the two lines together. I put a loop in the braided line, simple loop. I go over the top of the mono through the hole 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. I pull that tight, just like that, nice and smooth. There you go, it's nice and tight. Then I take the monofilament, I do the same thing. I make a loop, I go over the top of it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pull the mono tight. Pull it down tight. Okay? Then simply slide the two together. Pulling them tight, wrap it around your hand a little bit, give it a little tug, that cinches it down. That's a big knot, right? That's a large knot. But look, this is not going through the tip of the rod when I go to cast. My leader is going to be about 18 to 24 inches long. That's it. From the braid to that, I'm going to trim off the 2 tag lines, make them nice and clean. That way they're not hanging up on other people's lines if I get in a tangle. I'm going to trim them off nice and clean. Nice scissors. So you want to get a sharp pair of scissors, okay? We just happen to have this beautiful pair of scissors right here. So in a couple hours we'll have cut through this. Beautiful. Wow. All right, don't use those kind of scissors. Okay, there you go. That's your knot. Then I'm going to pull this about 18 inches, 24. I'm going to cut it right now. And I'm going to tie my hook right to the end of this line. Now, how do I tie on my hook? This is how I do it. It might not be the greatest way to tie on your hooks, but it's the way I do it. Now, if you know a better knot than the knots I'm showing you, keep tying that knot. This is the knot I'm going to use every single time, all day, every day. I do it the same way. Put the line through the hole, grab it with my index finger, wrap it around 7 times. That creates this big hole in the bottom. I go through the big hole on the bottom. I bring it back through the big loop that I just made. Grab the tag in with my teeth, slowly pull it, give a little spit, slide it down, pull it together. There it is. There's your knot. That's it. I trim it right next to the hook. I've been doing it that way my whole life. That's exactly how I do it every single time. It works flawless. I've caught albacore, bonita, barracuda, marlin, white sea bass, calico bass. Every single thing that swims in the ocean, that's how I tie my hook on every single time. Every time I tie it that way, it seems to work flawless every single time. Okay, so you got the knot to tie the hook on. You got your connection knot going to the spool of your braided line. It's time to go fishing. All right, there you go. Now, I'm going to show you the way I tie the dropper loop. We're just going to use the braided line because of the fact that it's blue. You can see it better. I'm going to show you this. This is also how I tie, let's pretend like this is the iron. This is how I tie my iron on. This is how I tie my weights on. I put the line through the hole. Can't get it in the hole. You gotta spit on it. Okay. Now what I do is I just pinch the line right here. Watch my index finger and thumb. I'll pinch the line together. Okay. Then I just simply wrap it around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. See where I pinched it? Made a little loop right there. I put it right through the little loop. And then I just pull it tight. And there it is. That's how I tie my irons on. That's how I tie my weights for my dropper loop. Same exact knot for the iron or for the dropper loop. Then I'll trim off this excess tag line. I won't use those phenomenal scissors. I'll use this pair of pliers. Okay, now I'm going to go about 18 inches above the weight. I'm going to put a loop in the line. Okay, I'm going to wrap that loop around my index finger and my middle finger. That makes another loop. See that? Okay, I'm going to take that, I'm going to give it a half turn towards me. Then I'm going to take the loop, go over the top, through the hole. There's my dropper loop. Okay? Now, what I do, I don't put my hook on here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to clip the line right about it, a little bit, maybe an inch past the knot, the loop. Okay? So now I got my dropper loop's been cut in half, but I got this tag end hanging off the loop. Why? Because it's going to be cleaner. The knot's going to be cleaner. It's going to be less for the fish to see. If you simply loop the hook on there, that might work, but this will work. Because now you're going to take the hook, you're going to tie it directly to that tag line coming off of there. Okay, once again, the same knot. Index finger, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That creates that bottom hole. We're going to go through the bottom hole, back out through this big hole I made, pull the hook down, it's tied on tight, beautiful. Clip off the tag end again with the beautiful pair of pliers we have here. Okay, so look, now here's your dropper loop. The way the dropper loop's set up to be fished is the weight's barely touching the bottom, but it is touching the bottom. The bait's just above it at 18 inches, 24 inches above it. That's where that sea bass is going to be swimming. Can you see it on the camera there? How it's set up from the weight up the line. Hook tied directly to your line. I'm going to use monofilament or fluoro though. I'm using the braid so you can see. Because if I was using fluoro monofilament, you wouldn't have the greatest look at this like you are because of the color of the line. So now that weight's laying on the bottom, but you always want to be able to feel the weight. If you're not feeling the weight, then all this line's laying on the bottom in a big pile and it's going to be a big mess. Whenever you're fishing a dropper loop, you have to be paying attention the whole time. You want this weight, you want to be able to feel the weight on the end of the line, and your bait's above it 12 to 18 inches. That gets it up above the squid nest and it looks like a squid up there squirting around. Or it gets the mackerel up above the scum on the bottom and it's swimming around in circles around your weight, and then that big sea bass or big yellow is going to eat it. But if you have a bunch of slack in your line with the dropper loop, the chances of you catching anything are slim and none. You just want to be feeling the bottom. You want to be feeling your weight. You don't want to be feeling your bait. You want to be feeling your weight. Does that make sense? I hope so, because that's how you do it. So you just got the dropper loop, you got the connection knot, you got how I tie on my hook, and you got how I tied on my iron. Those are the only knots I know. Those are the only knots I use. And I fish every single day. Every day I go fishing, and I fish for everything in the ocean. So if those knots don't work for you guys, it might not be the knot.